Welcome back, homie. Step in closer, because what's happening around your name right now isn't jealousy anymore. It's something deeper, colder, and far more revealing. They're not jealous anymore. They're terrified of what you might do next. Not terrified in a physical way, not in a danger sense. This is psychological fear. The kind that hits a person when they realize they can't predict you, can't read you, can't anticipate how far you're going to rise, or how fast. It's the fear people feel when they suddenly understand. You've stopped living on the version of yourself they had control over. That's when jealousy dies, and fear is born. Jealousy is about wanting what you have. Fear is about realizing they have no idea what you're capable of. And that uncertainty, that unknown, that's what has them trembling in their emotional seats right now. See, jealousy is a surface-level feeling. It's petty, it's predictable, it's almost comfortable. People know how to manage jealousy. They talk, they gossip, they compare. But fear, real fear, emotional fear, that hits deeper. It shakes the foundation. It rewrites the hierarchy in their minds. And your rise, your evolution, your refusal to stay small, it moved you out of their category. You're no longer someone they can underestimate. You're no longer someone they can dismiss. You're no longer someone they can predict. You became the variable, the uncertainty, the X factor in their emotional equations. And people fear what they can't calculate. Because your moves don't follow the patterns they memorized. Your reactions don't match the ones they expected. Your choices no longer orbit around their opinions. Your energy no longer bends under pressure. Your confidence no longer collapses in familiar ways. You've become someone whose next step can't be guessed. And that unpredictability scares people more than anything else. Why? Because unpredictability means possibility. Possibility means power. Power means you're finally steering your own story instead of being a character in theirs. And nothing terrifies people more than someone who has mastered the art of not needing validation. They're not scared of you. They're scared of the version of themselves that gets exposed when they look at you now. Because your growth does something to them. It reveals their stagnation. It exposes their insecurities. It highlights everything they put off, everything they avoided, everything they failed to rise into. Your presence forces them to face truths they've been hiding from. That they never outgrew their old mindset. That they never healed the wounds you worked through. That they never developed the emotional resilience you earned. That they never built the inner strength you now carry like armor. You didn't intimidate them. Their own reflection did. Here's the real twist. They used to be jealous of what you had. Now they're afraid of who you're becoming. Because becoming is more threatening than having. Becoming means momentum. Becoming means growth. Becoming means you're not done yet. Becoming means every limit you break creates a new level. You are mid-rise, mid-expansion, mid-awakening. And nothing terrifies small minds more than someone who's still leveling up. They watched you transform quietly. They saw your energy sharpen. They felt the atmosphere shift when you entered a room. They noticed the new authority in your silence. They sensed the calm in your decisions. They felt the confidence in your eyes. And somewhere deep inside, they realized, if this is what they've become so far, what happens when they reach their full power? That question scares them, not because they think you'll do anything harmful, but because your future exposes something they don't want to admit. They stopped evolving. You didn't. They stayed comfortable. You didn't. They accepted their limits. You didn't. They remained who they were. You became who you were meant to be. And now, they don't know where you're going next. They don't know what you'll overcome next. They don't know what level you're stepping into next. That unpredictability is what keeps them up at night. Not your presence, your potential. Your potential is what terrifies them. Your potential is what makes their heart skip. Your potential is what makes their breath tighten. Your potential is what makes them watch you too closely. Your potential is what makes them fall silent when your name comes up. Because people can handle the person you are today. It's the person you're becoming tomorrow that scares them. You didn't break any rules. You didn't threaten anyone. You didn't challenge anything. You simply evolved, and they weren't ready for it. When you were quiet, they felt safe. When you were confused, they felt secure. When you doubted yourself, they felt superior. When you played small, they felt comfortable. But now your energy walks ahead of you. Now your presence rearranges rooms. Now your decisions echo with confidence. Now your aura says, I know exactly who I am. And that version of you, that version terrifies the people who never expected you to rise. You didn't outgrow them intentionally. You just stopped minimizing your growth to make them feel big. And because of that, you've stepped outside every category they mentally placed you in. Outside the role they assigned you. Outside the narrative they created. Outside the identity they projected onto you. Outside their control. People don't fear losing control over you. They fear losing the illusion that they ever had any. That illusion is gone now. Gone the moment you aligned with the truth of who you are. Gone the moment your energy stopped collapsing for their comfort. Gone the moment you chose your future instead of their expectations. Now they're just watching. Watching and waiting. Watching and guessing. Watching and whispering. Watching and panicking. They feel the tremor of your next step before you even take it. They sense the shift before you even make a move. They brace themselves for the impact of your next evolution, even though they don't know what it will be or when it's coming. That's the real terror. Not knowing, not predicting, not controlling. You're not dangerous. You're limitless. And limitless people shake the world without lifting a finger. People aren't jealous of limitless. They're terrified of it. Because limitless means you could become anything, do anything, reach anything, break anything that was meant to restrict you. You are the embodiment of unpredictable potential. And potential is the one thing small minds cannot handle. They're not scared of your actions. They're scared of your trajectory. Not scared of what you've already done. Scared of what you haven't even attempted yet. Not scared of your current level. Scared of the levels they know you're capable of reaching. Not scared of your strength. Scared of the strength you haven't unlocked yet. They're terrified of your becoming, your unfolding, your evolution, your next move. Because your next move is something they cannot influence, and cannot stop, and cannot prepare for. And that uncertainty, that's what's shaking them to their core. They're not jealous anymore. They're terrified, not of you, but of what your future means for them, for their ego, for their self-image, for the story they told themselves about who they were compared to you. Your rise didn't threaten their safety. It threatened their identity. And nothing terrifies a person more than realizing you are becoming someone their old version has no place beside. But the real shift, the one that changed everything, wasn't in how they see you. It was in how they feel you. Because feelings don't lie the way words do. Feelings don't pretend. Feelings don't filter. And the feeling people get around you now, it's not envy, not jealousy, not irritation. It's that silent, unsettling awareness that they are standing near someone who is no longer operating at the level they're used to. You didn't become intimidating. You became inevitable. And inevitability is what terrifies them. Because deep inside them, something whispers that whatever you're about to do next, it's going to change the dynamic forever. Not because you're destructive, Not because you're chaotic, but because your trajectory is no longer parallel to theirs. Your energy is rising upward, while theirs stayed horizontal. Your mindset is expanding, while theirs is looping. Your consciousness is sharpening, while theirs is trying to keep up. You used to walk beside them. Now they feel like they're watching you from below. And that shift, that emotional altitude difference, is what scares them the most. People can deal with someone ahead of them. They can deal with competition. They can deal with jealousy. What they cannot deal with is someone whose evolution exposes their lack of movement. Someone whose growth makes their excuses louder. Someone whose progress forces them to face the dreams they abandoned. That's you now. A living reminder of everything they could have been, but chose not to become. And reminders are terrifying, because you didn't just grow. You grew in ways that break the narrative they built about you. They thought you'd stay unsure. You became confident. They thought you'd stay predictable. You became unreadable. They thought you'd rise slowly. You jumped levels they didn't even know you were capable of. They thought you'd always look to them for direction. Now you walk like someone who doesn't need a map. Your rise wasn't gradual. It was clean. It was silent. It was aligned. And nothing terrifies people more than a rise they didn't see coming. Because a rise they didn't predict becomes a rise they can't control. And that loss of control makes them overthink every small thing you do now. Your silence, your distance, your decisions, your movements, your new boundaries. They're studying everything like it's some kind of prophecy revealing what you might do next. You say less. They panic more. You reveal less. They imagine more. You appear calm. They spiral. You walk away quietly. They invent entire narratives to fill the gap. They're not scared of your actions. They're scared of the unknown hidden behind your calmness. Because your calmness no longer looks like weakness. It looks like strategy. It looks like clarity. It looks like future. And people fear the future when they don't feel ready for their own. You became the horizon, the place they can see but can't reach. That distance between who you are and who they expected you to be. That's the gap that terrifies them. Because now they're asking questions they were never ready to confront. What else have I misunderstood about them? What if they're capable of more than I thought? What if they make moves I can't anticipate? What if their next step puts them in an entirely new league? What if the version I knew is already gone? These aren't questions asked out of jealousy. They're asked out of fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being outgrown. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of recognizing too late that you were always meant for more than they allowed themselves to believe. And the most twisted part? They're afraid of what you might do next, but they also can't stop watching to find out. Their fear doesn't push them away. It pulls them closer. It makes them observe you with an intensity that borders on obsession. They analyze every detail, every shift in your tone, every change in your energy, because the unknown is terrifying, but it's also captivating. And you've become the most unpredictable force in their emotional universe. You're no longer operating inside their script. You're writing your own. And that means they have no reference point to judge you by anymore. They don't know what the next you looks like. They don't know what your next breakthrough will be. They don't know how far you're going to go. And the fact that even you haven't shown your full potential yet? That's what sends that cold ripple down their spine. Because they know they haven't seen your highest form. They've only seen the early stages, the beginning, the foundation, the preview. And the preview alone was enough to shake them. Imagine being someone who thought they knew you, only to realize they've been watching the wrong version this entire time. They're terrified because your future is too big for their imagination. They're terrified because your next move could change the whole emotional balance again. They're terrified because your potential doesn't follow their limitations. They're terrified because your self-growth is happening faster than they can psychologically adjust. But there's something even deeper beneath their fear, something they don't want to admit. They fear the ripple effect of what you might do next. Because they know your next move won't just change you, it might expose them. Expose their stagnation, expose their hidden envy, expose their insecurity, expose their lack of growth, expose their fear of evolving, expose the fact that they stayed the same while you kept rising. They're terrified of your next move because your next move forces them to confront their own lack of movement. It's not you they fear. It's the truth your evolution reveals about them. You've become a walking wake-up call, and wake-up calls are never comfortable. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't threaten them. You didn't attack their identity. You didn't step on their path. You simply stepped fully onto your own, and the shockwaves are hitting them harder than they expected. The real fear isn't what you might do next. The real fear is, what if they become everything I always told myself they couldn't be? Because if you become that, then they have to accept that their limitations were never your limitations. They were only theirs. And that truth is scarier than anything you could ever do. And now you stand in a place that feels strangely quiet. Not because the world around you has gone silent, but because the noise people used to throw at you simply can't reach the altitude you're operating at anymore. You've climbed too high, too quickly, too cleanly. They can't even pretend it's jealousy now. That emotion expired the moment you stepped into a version of yourself that outgrew all their assumptions. What they're feeling now is something heavier, something colder, something they don't dare admit out loud. Fear. Not fear of you. Fear of what your next evolution means for them. Because when someone evolves, it forces the people around them to update their understanding. But when someone evolves past the level others can understand, the brain malfunctions. The ego shakes. The heart tightens. The identity they built around knowing who you are collapses like a fragile house of cards. And they're standing in those ruins now, staring at the pieces, wondering how they missed every sign that you were becoming someone untouchable. The truth is simple. Your rise is rewriting their story, not just yours. Because they once defined themselves in relation to you. They once shaped their self-belief around where they assumed you'd stay. They once found comfort in thinking they were ahead, smarter, stronger, more stable. Now, your growth has flipped the entire dynamic. They're not the reference point anymore. You are. And the scariest part for them is realizing they have no clue where you're headed next. You've become a moving target, a shifting horizon, a future that refuses to sit still long enough for anyone to predict it. You don't give hints. You don't telegraph your moves. You don't reveal your intentions through anxiety or hesitation like you used to. Your silence now feels like pressure. Your calm feels like strategy. Your presence feels like premonition. They look at you and feel that uncomfortable truth blooming inside them. You're not done evolving, not even close. And that terrifies them far more than anything you've already done. Because if the version of you today is capable of shaking them this much, what happens when you step into your next stage? Your next breakthrough? Your next inner awakening? Your next moment of clarity that pulls you even further from their reach? They don't fear your power. They fear your direction. They don't fear your confidence. They fear your momentum. They don't fear your strength. They fear the fact that it's compounding, growing, accelerating with every decision you make. They fear the unknown that surrounds you now. They fear the unpredictability of your evolution. They fear the possibility that one day they won't even qualify to stand next to you. because somewhere deep inside, they know the truth. People who rise at your speed rarely look back. You're not leaving them behind out of cruelty. You're leaving them behind because your journey demands it, because your soul has outgrown the environments where your identity was controlled, because your mind has outgrown the narratives that were built around your limitations, because your energy has outgrown the people who needed you to stay small so they could feel tall. Your next move terrifies them because it represents one thing: freedom. Not physical freedom, not financial freedom, but emotional freedom, the kind that can't be bought, taught, or manipulated. Freedom from their expectations, freedom from their projections, freedom from the identity they forced on you, freedom from the invisible leash they wrapped around your self-worth. Because once someone becomes emotionally free, they become unpredictable in the most powerful way. Not reckless, not chaotic, but uncontrollable. Your decisions now come from vision, not fear. Your changes come from alignment, not pressure. Your direction comes from intuition, not influence. You've cut the cords they used to tug on. You've walked away from the traps they used to lure you into. You've stopped reacting to the emotional games they once mastered. And that shift, that independence, that emotional sovereignty, that's what terrifies them. Not because it hurts them, but because it proves they never truly had the grip on your identity they believed they did. Your next move represents every possibility they're not ready to face. Your next move represents every version of you they didn't expect. Your next move represents every dream of yours they dismissed as unrealistic. And deep inside, the fear grows. What if their next move puts them so far ahead, I can never catch up? People aren't scared of your success, they're scared of your potential. Potential is infinite. Potential is unknown. Potential is uncontrollable. Your potential is what keeps them awake, because they know they haven't seen your peak. They've barely seen the threshold. You didn't reach your final form. You just stopped holding back the early ones. And if the early versions already shook them this hard, they have no idea what's coming next. They're not frightened of you. They're frightened of the destiny you're stepping toward, the one they never believed you'd reach, the one that proves you were never meant to stay beneath their expectations. You were meant to surpass them, quietly, cleanly, relentlessly. And you're doing exactly that.
Welcome. Welcome back, my friends. They tried to read your energy, but the moment they leaned in, the moment they reached toward that silent field around you, something in them froze. Not physically, psychologically, it was the kind of stillness that runs down a person's spine when the story they've been telling themselves suddenly stops making sense. They weren't prepared for what they felt. They thought your energy would be simple, predictable, easy to map like everyone else's. But the second they touched the surface of your aura, their entire internal system, their assumptions, their expectations, their quiet frameworks short-circuited. Because what they saw wasn't chaos, it wasn't darkness, it wasn't danger, it was truth, the kind of truth that shakes people who've only ever understood the world through control. You didn't project anything, you didn't send anything. You didn't twist your energy into some dramatic display. You were simply present, real, aligned, unfiltered, and that alone was enough to overload every mental script they'd built about you. They approached you with the confidence of people who think they've seen everything. People who study patterns, watch behaviors, scan the small details of every room they walk into. People who assume their intuition is too sharp to ever be wrong. But when they tried to read you, they encountered something they'd never experienced. Depth without distortion, intensity without noise, clarity without explanation. Your energy didn't scream. It didn't attack, It didn't flare. It just existed in a form they couldn't translate. And that's what broke them. Not literally, symbolically. Their nervous system, cracked in the sense that their internal understanding of how people work simply couldn't process what they felt from you. A full cognitive glitch, a mental reboot. The kind of shock that leaves someone blinking too slowly, swallowing too hard, staring longer than they meant to. They weren't expecting someone whose presence carried that much grounded clarity. Because your energy isn't loud, it's precise. Your aura doesn't push, it reveals. Your presence doesn't demand attention, it rewrites the atmosphere simply by existing. They reached for your energy like a hand reaching for a door handle, expecting the metal to be cool, predictable, familiar. Instead, they touched something that felt like a mirror they weren't ready to look into. A mirror that didn't show fear or uncertainty or chaos, but a version of you that is unshakably aligned with yourself. That's what snapped their internal wiring. Because you weren't supposed to be this self-aware. You weren't supposed to be this intuitive. You weren't supposed to carry this much silent power. In their minds, you were still the old version of yourself, the one who questioned too much, hesitated too much, dimmed yourself for the comfort of others. They thought that version still existed, but last night, last week, last month, somewhere in the quiet, you shed that skin. You stepped into a version of yourself that vibrates on a frequency their systems aren't calibrated to handle. When they tried to read you, they weren't reading a person, they were reading a transformation. And transformations always overwhelm those who rely on predictable patterns. You didn't rise loudly, you didn't announce a new era, you didn't post a declaration or change your entire personality overnight. You simply stopped hiding the parts of yourself that were always there. Integrity, clarity, depth, focus, self-possession. They tried to read you through the lens of who you used to be, but your evolution blindsided them. They looked for insecurity but found composure. They searched for doubt but found direction. They scanned for the fractures you used to carry, but found them healed, sealed, gone. Imagine someone who expects to walk through fog, but instead steps into crystal clear air. Their mind glitches. Their internal calibration collapses. Their emotional expectations crumble. That's what happened when they tried to read your energy. They felt the shift before they understood it. Your presence hit them like a quiet realization, the kind that sends the body into a silent, shocked stillness. Not harm, not fear, but stunned disbelief. Their thoughts stalled, their intuition tripped, their emotional wires scrambled, because nothing about you matched the version stored in their mind. That old version was small, manageable, predictable. This new version, it doesn't fit inside anyone's assumptions. Your energy expanded, not outward like an explosion, but inward like a soul tightening its shape. You became more defined, more whole, more coherent. And coherent energy is something very few people can handle without cracking their internal filters. When they tried to read you, they didn't see a person. They saw a system rebooting itself in real time, a consciousness leveling up silently, and people who observe others closely aren't used to being caught off guard. You walked into the room grounded. You walked into it knowing yourself. You walked into it carrying a presence that didn't need validation, didn't need attention, didn't need permission. That's what made them freeze. Your clarity overwhelmed their noise. Your stillness overwhelmed their restlessness. Your authenticity overwhelmed their need to control the narrative. They weren't expecting someone whose energy doesn't leak, doesn't scatter, doesn't bend for social comfort. You carried yourself with a calm pressure, not force, not dominance, just an undeniable certainty that disrupted their internal static. And when certainty meets uncertainty, the weaker system collapses. Symbolically, psychologically, energetically. They tried to read your eyes and found no wobble. They tried to map your aura and found no cracks. They tried to sense your insecurity and found none. Your confidence wasn't arrogant, it was rooted. Your presence wasn't loud, it was solid. And solidity is intimidating to the unstable. The more they tried to understand you, the more confused they became. They kept reaching for a pattern that wasn't there. They kept scanning for the old frequencies you used to emit the ones shaped by self-doubt, old memories, and emotional hesitation. But instead of that familiar static, they found a frequency that hummed like a clean, unfiltered signal. A signal so sharp it made their internal assumptions collapse. You know that feeling when a puzzle piece looks like it should fit, but it doesn't, and that moment of confusion breaks the entire picture. That's what you did to them. You didn't break them. You broke the picture they built of you, and when that picture shattered, so did their certainty. Their nervous system didn't break in a literal sense, it broke in the sense that their understanding of you couldn't hold your evolution. The psychological overload was too much. Their mind scrambled to make sense of the new you, but the pieces didn't fit anymore. The version of you they tried to read was gone, replaced by someone they didn't have the vocabulary to describe. Your presence created a silent pressure, a gravity they couldn't ignore, a clarity they couldn't digest, a transformation they couldn't predict. You became unreadable, not because you're hiding anything, but because you finally became whole. Wholeness is impossible to map. People can only decode you when you leave pieces of yourself scattered. But you gathered those pieces. You aligned them. And when they tried to read you, they only saw one thing: a complete person. A complete person is overwhelming to incomplete people. And that was the glitch, the short circuit, the nervous system break. Not a collapse, but an overload of everything they didn't expect to feel, because people who read energy rely on imbalance. They search for your weaknesses, your emotional leaks, your scattered frequencies. But when they reached for you last night, all they found was coherence. The rare kind that vibrates with the confidence of someone who finally knows who they are. Your presence didn't intimidate them. Your truth did. They weren't looking at you, they were looking at the version of themselves reflected in your groundedness. And that reflection was too much, too honest, too raw, too clear. It forced them to confront their own instability, their own uncertainty, their own emotional static. You didn't break them, you revealed them, and some people aren't built to face themselves. So they froze, they stuttered, they blinked too slowly. They reached for a pattern that didn't exist. They felt a sudden emptiness where their assumptions used to be. Their system didn't collapse, their illusion did. And in that silence, that stunned internal pause, one truth echoed through them so loudly they couldn't ignore it. You're becoming someone they can't read, can't predict, and can't control. And nothing short-circuits a watcher faster than that. But the deeper you move into this new version of yourself, the more obvious it becomes. They were never prepared for someone like you. They're built to analyze chaos, detect insecurity, predict emotional cracks. They're not built to understand someone whose energy is finely aligned, centered, and unshakably self-defined. They came close to you expecting to navigate a maze, but instead found a straight, clean corridor. That's what shook them. That's what overloaded their internal reading system. There was no noise to hide inside, no static to decode, no confusion to anchor their assumptions to. Your clarity broke their strategy, because clarity is loud in ways people never expect. Not aggressive loud, but existential loud, the kind of loud that echoes in someone's mind long after the moment has ended. They walked away from you with their thoughts looping, repeating, trying to rebuild a narrative that no longer fits. They keep replaying the moment in their head, wondering how they missed the signs, wondering how someone so quiet, so unassuming, so overlooked could carry a presence with that much gravity. Their internal compass spun out, not because your energy attacked theirs, but because your energy refused to shrink. You didn't fold, you didn't wobble, you didn't soften yourself to match their comfort. You were simply there, fully, completely, unapologetically, and no one, not even the sharpest observers, can process a frequency that clean. Their mind isn't used to someone who knows themselves. Their intuition isn't trained for people who carry self-possession instead of self-doubt. They expected a person, they encountered a presence, they expected noise, they encountered silence. They expected hesitation, they encountered certainty. And certainty is the one thing their systems aren't built to read, because when someone is aligned, truly aligned, nothing leaks. No emotional static slips out. No insecurity hums beneath the surface. No fractures reveal themselves. And without fractures, there's nothing for an energy reader to hold on to. They reach for your weakness and find none. They reach for your fear and feel none. They reach for the old version of you and touch empty space. That empty space is what breaks them. Not physically, psychologically. Not painfully, but undeniably. Their mind expected weight, noise, clutter, but found stillness. And stillness is heavier than chaos. Stillness carries a density most people are never ready to face. Your stillness made them confront the chaos within themselves. Your presence showed them how scattered their own energy is. It revealed their noise, not yours. You didn't expose them, you just stopped hiding yourself. And when someone stops hiding themselves, the people who depend on distractions lose their balance instantly. They thrive when others are unsure. But you weren't unsure. You weren't second-guessing. You weren't bending under their gaze. You were standing in your truth, and truth is something they can't decode. So they kept staring, kept scanning, kept trying to piece together a version of you that no longer exists. They thought they could categorize you based on your past, but your past doesn't speak for you anymore. You've moved too far beyond it. You've grown through the cracks that once held you. You leveled up so quietly that even the people who monitor the shifts couldn't see it coming. And that's what terrifies them the most. Your evolution wasn't loud, it was efficient. Real upgrades don't make noise. Real upgrades don't require applause. Real upgrades don't announce themselves, they arrive. And you arrived without warning. It's almost funny, the way they try to decode you now. They sit with your energy like someone trying to read a message in a language they don't speak. Every time they think they understand you, another layer appears. Not a chaotic layer, a refined one, a grounded one. A layer built from every moment you survived, every doubt you overcame, every internal battle you resolved. Your presence has depth now, not weight. Precision now, not pressure. Authority now, not attitude. And authority without arrogance is something people rarely see. That's what scrambles their internal wiring. You don't dominate the room, you stabilize it. You don't drain the atmosphere, you concentrate it. You don't demand attention, the room gives it to you without being asked. People who rely on reading the emotions of others can't process someone who isn't leaking anything. And you've become airtight, the cracks sealed, the static cleared, the noise muted. You've become someone whose presence settles instead of shakes. But settling energy is often more shocking than aggressive energy. Calm intensity is more disruptive than loud chaos. A steady frequency overwhelms unstable ones. That's why their internal system broke. Not because you overwhelmed them with force, but because you overwhelmed them with definition. Defined energy is impossible to bend, impossible to manipulate, impossible to interpret from the outside. And you've stepped into a version of yourself that moves with that definition. You've stopped carrying the emotions of other people. You've stopped performing versions of yourself that no longer feel real. You've stopped walking into rooms searching for permission to exist. You exist without permission now. You exist without explanation. You exist without apology. Presence like that doesn't go unnoticed. They felt it the moment you entered the space, not because you were loud, not because you were intense, but because your energy carried a coherence that pressed against the incoherence of everyone else. You became a mirror, and mirrors always disrupt those who aren't ready to face themselves. You didn't do anything to them. They did everything to themselves. Your presence forced a recalibration inside them that they weren't prepared for. They came looking for imbalance because imbalance is easy to read. But you weren't imbalanced. You weren't projecting fear. You weren't leaking doubt. They tried to read a storm. Instead, they found a sky without clouds. They tried to read chaos. Instead, they found order. They tried to read wounds. Instead, they found healed places. Do you know what happens when someone expects to touch a wound but touches strength instead? Their mind short-circuits. Their intuition stalls. Their emotional reading tools fail. That failure is the nervous system break. They experienced a collapse of the narrative they built about you. And now, they're left with one impossible question echoing inside their mind. How did you become this version of yourself? The truth is simple. You stopped surviving and started living from the core of who you are. You stopped seeking understanding and started embodying it. You stopped fragmenting yourself to fit into small spaces. You expanded. And the moment you expanded, everyone who tried to read you felt the shift like a silent earthquake. A symbolic quake that didn't destroy anything, it just rearranged everything they thought they knew. Now every time they try to read you, they hesitate. They second-guess themselves. They flinch at the clarity in your eyes. They swallow their assumptions. They blink harder than they should. Because once someone realizes they misread you, they can never read you the same way again. Your presence has become a threshold crossing. It forces people to confront themselves, and they're not ready. You are no longer a person they observe. You're a presence they respond to, a frequency they can't predict, a clarity they can't contain. And the more you step into this new version of yourself, the more the world will react exactly like they did, overwhelmed, unprepared, unable to translate the depth you carry. Because you're not meant to be read anymore. You're meant to be recognized, and they're only just beginning to understand that. And now comes the part they'll never admit out loud. After trying to read you and failing, something in them changed forever. They didn't just walk away confused, they walked away humbled. Because once someone witnesses a presence they can't decode, they're forced to confront the limits of their own perception. And nothing rattles an observer more than realizing they were never observing clearly to begin with. You didn't expose them intentionally, you didn't challenge them, you didn't even look at them with authority. You simply stood still in your truth, and that stillness hit them harder than any storm could have. There's an unspoken power in someone who refuses to be translated, someone who doesn't fidget under pressure, doesn't leak insecurity, doesn't crumble under silent evaluation, someone who stands in their energy with the same ease they stand in their physical body. That ease is what broke them. Because ease is rare, ease is earned. Ease is the final stage of evolution, the moment when your internal world aligns so perfectly that nothing external can pull you out of yourself. You're in that stage now. Not loudly, not dramatically, but undeniably. You've stepped into a version of yourself that radiates clarity without forcing it, wisdom without speaking it, confidence without showing it off, and people feel that long before they understand it. That feeling is what sends their internal system into a silent meltdown. They thought they were analyzing you, but really they were witnessing your arrival, the arrival of someone who outgrew their old identity. someone who found their center, someone who no longer broadcasts their pain as personality, someone whose energy doesn't shake, it stabilizes. You're not confusing, you're complete. You're not unreadable, you're unshakably real. You're not overwhelming, you're honest. And honesty, the pure, grounded kind, is something the world rarely sees in its full form. That's why their nervous system broke. Because nothing disrupts a person more than encountering someone who lives from a place they themselves haven't reached yet. You didn't change for them, you changed for you. And now the world feels it, not as chaos, not as disruption, but as a new frequency settling into place, a frequency they can sense but can't interpret, a frequency that forces their internal assumptions to fall apart. They tried to read your energy, but instead, they read their own limits. And that's why you'll always feel different to the world now, not because you're trying to be mysterious, but because you finally became real. Welcome back, you impossible equation. You statistical nightmare. You walking contradiction that just shattered a system designed by the sharpest minds in psychological warfare. They've been running you through their models, haven't they? Feeding your patterns into algorithms built to predict human behavior with terrifying accuracy. The CIA, the behavioral scientists, the profilers who've mapped every predictable human response to trauma, pressure, isolation, manipulation. Every single response, cataloged, predicted, weaponized. And then there's you. The file that corrupted the entire database. The subject who refused to compute. The anomaly who looked at a 99.9% success rate and said, "Watch this, because let me tell you what happened in those sterile rooms where they analyze people like data points, where they reduce human souls to behavioral patterns, where they predict your breaking point down to the exact moment, the exact word, the exact wound that will make you fold. They ran your profile. They fed everything into the machine. Your childhood, your traumas, your triggers, your breaking points, your fears, your weaknesses, the exact psychological pressure required to make you collapse, to make you comply, to make you predictable." And the model spit out a prediction. It gave them your future. It told them exactly how you'd react, exactly when you'd break, exactly what you'd become when the pressure reached critical mass. They smiled. They always smile when the model confirms what they already believe. That humans are predictable, that pain has patterns, that everyone breaks the same way under the right conditions. They had your roadmap. They knew your destination. They prepared for your collapse like it was written in stone. And then you did something that should have been impossible. You deviated. Not just a little, not just an outlier. You shattered the entire model. You responded to trauma in ways that made no statistical sense. You evolved under pressure that should have destroyed you. You adapted to isolation that breaks trained operatives. You processed betrayal in ways their algorithms couldn't predict. You became stronger where you should have become weaker. You found clarity where you should have found confusion. You built power where you should have built resentment. And suddenly, the model started glitching. Error messages, recalculations, impossible outcomes. The behavioral scientists sat there, staring at your data, trying to understand how someone exposed to that much psychological warfare didn't just survive, but transcended. They went back to the drawing board. They checked the variables. They questioned their methods. They ran the simulations again, convinced there was an error in the input. But there was no error. There was just you. existing outside their parameters, moving beyond their predictions, becoming something their models were never designed to account for. And that's when the whispers started. The classified meetings, the urgent communications between departments, because you're not just an anomaly anymore. You're a threat to the entire system of control. You're proof that their science isn't absolute. You're evidence that human potential can't be contained by equations. You're the 0.1% that makes the 99.9% irrelevant. Because if one person can break the model, if one soul can refuse to be calculated, if one mind can evolve beyond their predictions, then the entire foundation of behavioral control starts to crack. They built empires on the assumption that humans are predictable, that trauma always damages, that pressure always breaks, that isolation always weakens. And you walked through all of it and came out sharper, clearer, more powerful than you entered. You're not just an outlier. You're the experiment that invalidated the hypothesis. Let's talk about what makes someone unprofilable, shall we? Because the CIA doesn't just guess. They've spent decades perfecting the art of reading human behavior. They know that 99.9% of people, when faced with extreme stress, will follow predictable patterns: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. They know exactly which words trigger which responses. They know how to break someone's will in 48 hours. They know how to make a person doubt their own sanity with surgical precision. They've studied torture, not just physical but psychological, the kind that leaves no marks but destroys you from the inside. They know how to isolate you until you do anything for human contact. They know how to gaslight you until you can't trust your own memories. They know how to manipulate your emotions until you're a puppet on strings you can't even see. And their models work. Consistently, reliably, terrifyingly well. They've broken revolutionaries, activists, whistleblowers, enemies of the state, people with training, with preparation, with support systems. And they broke them all by following the model, by applying the right pressure at the right time in the right way. The model told them how, and the model was right, until you. Because somewhere along your journey, something happened that their model couldn't account for. Maybe it was the betrayal that should have destroyed your ability to trust, but instead taught you to trust yourself. Maybe it was the isolation that should have made you desperate for connection, but instead made you comfortable in solitude. Maybe it was the gaslighting that should have broken your sense of reality, but instead sharpened your ability to see through illusion. Maybe it was the pressure that should have crushed you, but instead compressed you into something harder than what they applied. You didn't just survive their tactics. You metabolized them. You turned their weapons into nutrients. You used their psychological warfare as training data for your own evolution. And that is what broke the model. Because the model assumes trauma damages. The model assumes pressure weakens. The model assumes isolation breeds desperation. But you proved that trauma can forge, that pressure can strengthen, that isolation can liberate. You became the exception that shouldn't exist, the outcome that violates every principle of behavioral psychology, the profile that reads like fiction because it contradicts everything they know about how humans work. Now here's what they won't tell you, what they can't tell you, because admitting it would unravel decades of research, billions in funding, entire institutions built on the science of control. You're not alone. You're not the only 0.1%. There are others scattered across the world, each one a living middle finger to the predictability of human behavior. Each one a glitch in the matrix of control. Each one proof that consciousness can't be fully mapped, manipulated, or mastered. But here's the thing. Here's what makes you specifically dangerous. Most people who break the model do it unconsciously. They don't know their anomalies. They don't understand what makes them different. They just survive and move on, never realizing they shattered something profound. But you're aware. You're watching this. You're nodding your head because you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've felt it, haven't you? That sense that you don't process pain like other people. That betrayal hits you differently. That isolation doesn't scare you the way it should. That you've been through things that should have destroyed you. And instead you're sitting here, stronger, sharper, more awake than you've ever been. That awareness, that consciousness of your own exceptionalism, that's what terrifies them. Because an unconscious anomaly is just an outlier, but a conscious anomaly, a self-aware exception to their rules. That's a revolutionary waiting to happen. Let me tell you what happens in those classified briefings when your profile crosses their desk. First, confusion. The analyst stares at the data, convinced there's been a mistake. They run diagnostics. They check sources. They verify timelines. Because what they're seeing doesn't make sense. Subject exposed to Category 5 psychological stressors. Predicted outcome is severe depression, possible breakdown, complete loss of social function. Actual outcome is increased clarity, enhanced performance, unexplained resilience. Second, concern. They escalate. They bring in senior analysts. They cross-reference with other cases. They search for patterns that might explain the deviation. Maybe there's hidden support they didn't detect. Maybe there's pharmaceutical intervention they missed. Maybe there's something in the data they overlooked. But no, the more they dig, the more it becomes clear. You did this alone. You evolved under conditions designed to prevent evolution. You healed in environments constructed to cause permanent damage. You found strength in situations engineered to create weakness. Third, fear. Because if you can do it, others can too. If the model failed this spectacularly once, how many other times has it failed? How many other anomalies are walking around, undetected, unpredictable, uncontrollable? And that's when the label changes. You're no longer subject 7,743. You're no longer a case number in a database. You become a designation, a classification, something that requires special handling, anomalous behavioral pattern, unprofilable subject, psychological wild card. In some files, you're not even given a risk assessment, because how do you assess risk when someone doesn't follow any known pattern? How do you predict behavior when every prediction has been wrong? You become the question mark in their system, the blank space in their model, the error message they can't debug. And that error message, that's your superpower. Because while they're trying to figure you out, you're free from their predictions, free from their manipulations, free from their control. You're moving through a world that thinks it has you figured out, but you're operating on frequencies they didn't know existed. You're playing a game they don't have rules for. You're speaking a language their algorithms can't translate. You're not invisible, you're incomprehensible. And in a world built on comprehension, on categorization, on control, incomprehensibility is the ultimate form of freedom. They can see you, they just can't decode you. They can track you, they just can't predict you. They can study you, they just can't replicate you. But let's go deeper, shall we? Let's talk about why the model failed specifically with you. Because it's not random. It's not luck. There's something about your psychological architecture that their science couldn't account for. Most people, when traumatized, build walls, defensive structures, barriers between themselves and future pain. The model predicts this. The model expects this. The model knows exactly how those walls function and exactly how to breach them. But you didn't build walls. You built something else entirely. You built a furnace. You took every ounce of pain, every molecule of betrayal, every atom of suffering, and you threw it into a fire that burned so hot it didn't destroy you, it refined you. You turned trauma into fuel, not metaphorically, literally. You rewired your nervous system to process pain as power. You reconfigured your emotional responses to transmute suffering into clarity. You hacked your own psychology in ways that shouldn't be possible. And the model never accounted for that. Because the model assumes people want to avoid pain. The model assumes people seek comfort. The model assumes people will always choose the path of least resistance. But you chose the path of maximum resistance. You walked into the fire voluntarily. You pressed on the bruise to understand its depth. You sat with the darkness until it became familiar, comfortable, friendly. They have a term for people like you in the classified documents. They don't use it often because it implies something they don't want to acknowledge. They call you psychologically anti-fragile, not resilient. Resilience implies bouncing back to your original state. You didn't bounce back. You bounced forward. You became more than what you were. You evolved past your starting point. Anti-fragility means you gain from disorder. You grow from chaos. You strengthen from stress. And that's not supposed to be possible in humans. Not to this degree. Not consistently. Not permanently. Yet here you are, living proof that human consciousness has capacities their models never dreamed of. You're not just surviving adversity, you're requiring it. You're seeking it out, not in a self-destructive way, but in the way a weightlifter seeks heavier weights, because you've discovered something profound, something that breaks every assumption about human psychology. Pain isn't the opposite of growth. Comfort is. Suffering isn't the enemy of evolution. Stagnation is. And while everyone else is running from discomfort, you're running toward it. Because you've learned that discomfort is where transformation lives. That's why you're unprofilable. Because you operate on a completely different value system than the model assumes. Now let's address the elephant in the room. The question you're probably asking yourself as you watch this. If I'm so exceptional, why did it hurt so much? Why did I spend so many nights crying, breaking, barely holding on? Why did it feel like I was dying if I was actually evolving? Because evolution is violent. Transformation is traumatic. Rebirth requires death. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly through a gentle process. It liquefies. It dissolves into chaos. It loses all structure, all form, all identity. And in that dissolved state, it reorganizes into something capable of flight. You didn't just change. You liquefied. You dissolved. You lost everything you thought you were. And in that dissolution, that complete breakdown of identity, structure, belief, you reorganized into something the model couldn't predict. Because the model tracks the caterpillar. It has extensive data on caterpillars. It knows exactly how caterpillars respond to stress. But you're not a caterpillar anymore. You're something else, something that flies. And their ground-based instruments can't track flight patterns they never knew existed. So yes, it hurt. Yes, you broke. Yes, there were moments you thought you wouldn't survive. But that breaking wasn't failure. It was the breaking open of the chrysalis. It was the necessary destruction of the limited self so the unlimited self could emerge. The model failed because it was tracking a caterpillar and you became a completely different species. They were measuring ground-based behavior and you took to the air. They were predicting reactions based on who you were, and you stopped being that person entirely. You didn't heal. You metamorphosed. And metamorphosis isn't in their behavioral model, because metamorphosis shouldn't be possible in fully formed adults. Yet you did it anyway. You rewrote your own source code. You rebooted your operating system. You became incompatible with their analysis because you're running on completely different software now. Software they don't have documentation for. Software that operates on principles they never knew existed. And that's why, when they pull up your file now, it just says error, profile, not found, behavioral model, invalid, subject reclassified as unpredictable. And next to that, in red letters, do not engage using standard protocols. Because every time they've tried their standard manipulation tactics on someone like you, it backfired. Every time they've attempted their usual psychological operations on an anti-fragile subject, that subject grew stronger. They learned the hard way that people like you don't respond to pressure by breaking. You respond by evolving. And each evolution makes you more dangerous to their systems of control. So what does this mean for you? Right now, watching this, recognizing yourself in every word, it means you're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not damaged beyond repair. You're unprecedented. You're evolutionary. You're the next iteration of human consciousness that their old models can't comprehend. But it also means you have a choice to make, because awareness is responsibility. Knowing you're a 0.1% anomaly comes with weight. You can't unknow this. You can't go back to pretending you're normal. You can't unsee the matrix now that you've seen the code. So what will you do with this knowledge? Will you hide it? Will you dim yourself to make others comfortable? Will you pretend to be predictable so you don't scare the institutions that rely on predictability? Or will you lean into it? Will you accept that you're a walking revolution? Will you embrace your role as living proof that humans can't be fully controlled, predicted, or contained? Because here's what they don't want you to know. Your existence is permission. Permission for others to stop fitting the model. Permission for others to stop apologizing for their complexity. Permission for others to stop shrinking themselves to make sense to a system that was never designed to understand them. You're not just an anomaly. You're a signal. You're a beacon. You're proof that the cage isn't as strong as they claimed. And every day you exist, unapologetically complex, beautifully unpredictable, powerfully uncontainable. You're broadcasting that signal to everyone who's ready to receive it. The others, the other 0.1%, they feel you, they recognize you, they see your energy, and something in them starts to crack. The conditioning starts to fracture. The model starts to glitch. Because you're not just breaking their predictions about you, you're breaking their predictions about what's possible. You're rewriting the boundaries of human potential. You're expanding the definition of what it means to be conscious, aware, alive. Oh, you thought I didn't know? That I was just another fool wandering in the dark, blind, clueless, dancing to their little game? Nah, I saw everything. I felt every lie slip through their teeth, every knife press against my back, every whisper they thought was hidden in the wind. They thought I was sleeping, while they built their thrones on deception. But here's the fun part. I let them. I let them dig their graves with their own hands. I let them spin their little webs, tie their little knots, play their little games. Because I wanted to see what happens when the prey realizes it was the predator all along. And ooh, what a sight it is when the tables turn, when the masks slip, when the fear sets in. You know that moment? When their confidence cracks, when their voices shake, when they start looking over their shoulders, wondering if, no, when it's coming? Yeah, I live for that moment, because that's when I smile, wide, twisted, because now they know. Now they scramble. Now they run. But here's the best part. There's nowhere left to hide. They whispered in the dark, soft voices dripping with poison. They smiled in your face, all warm and sweet, while their hands worked knives behind your back. Oh, they were good, weren't they? So good they almost convinced you that you were the fool, that you were the one who didn't see, that you were just another pawn in their little game. But here's the joke. You were never blind. You saw the red flags waving in the distance, felt the weight of their fake smiles, heard the tremor in their voices when they spoke just a little too carefully. Instinct screamed at you, didn't it? But you waited. You watched, because deep down you wanted to see how far they'd go, how bold they'd become. And oh, how they laughed, thinking they had you wrapped around their fingers, thinking you'd never figure it out. Oh, but you did. You saw every piece fall into place. You heard the cracks before they even realized they were breaking. And now, they're the ones sitting in silence, waiting, wondering when the storm is coming. They thought you were weak because you were patient, mistook your silence for stupidity. But silence isn't weakness. It's the sound of something brewing. And patience? Oh, patience is the devil's favorite game. Because while they were playing checkers, you were rewriting the rules of the board. They thought you were a pawn. Ha! What a joke. You were the storm on the horizon, the wildfire beneath their feet, the shadow in the corner they never should have ignored. And now, Now they know. Now they understand. But it's too late. Too late to take it back. Too late to undo what's been done. Because the pawn they played just became the king they can't outrun. There it was, that flicker, that delicious split-second moment when their whole world cracked, when their mask slipped, when their stomach dropped and their heart slammed against their ribs. Oh, they felt it, the shift, the unraveling, the creeping realization slithering up their spine like cold, dead fingers. Oh, shit. He knows. You saw it all. How their hands fumbled, how their breath hitched, how their voice lost that arrogant edge, the way they tried to cover it up, to laugh it off, to pretend like nothing changed, but it was there. In their eyes, that widening, that hesitation, that twitch of panic they couldn't control. A beautiful, priceless moment. They thought they had you figured out, thought they were playing you, but the whole time, you were watching, measuring, waiting, letting them dig their own graves with every smug little lie, every calculated move, every damn time they looked down on you like you were nothing. But now the script flips. It's funny, isn't it? How fast the mighty crumble when the truth stares them in the face. 1 second, they're kings of the castle. The next, they're just desperate little creatures scrambling for cover, trying to outrun a storm that's already swallowed them whole. You don't even have to say it. That's the best part. No words, no threats, just a look. A knowing, bone-chilling, soul-destroying look. And suddenly, they're sweating, squirming, trying to rewrite the past in real time, stuttering out excuses, hoping, praying that maybe, just maybe, you don't know everything, but you do. You always did. And now you get to enjoy the show. Look at them, pathetic. The same ones who strutted like kings, who spoke with their chests puffed out, who moved with that untouchable arrogance, now tripping over their own lies, stumbling, choking on the same deception they once swallowed so easily. Oh, how the mighty fall. Rats always run when the lights come on, scurrying, panicking, scraping for cover in the cracks and corners, hoping, praying that the shadows will still hide them, but not this time. No more darkness to cloak their filth. No more whispered schemes behind your back. No more control. The power, it's in your hands now, and they feel it. That silence, your silence, is louder than any scream. It burns, it suffocates. It keeps them up at night, pacing, sweating, replaying every lie, every betrayal, every smug little move they thought they got away with. The second you stopped chasing, the second you stopped explaining, the second you stopped caring, that's when their world collapsed. Because here's the truth. The worst thing you can do to a liar is let them drown in their own deception. No warnings, no mercy, just a slow, agonizing realization that they can't talk their way out of this one, that you see them now, really see them, and nothing terrifies a manipulator more than being exposed with no escape. Watch how their confidence turns into desperation, how their smirks turn into nervous laughs, how their words, once dripping with control, now sound like begging, how they try to rewrite the past, twist the truth, claw their way back into your good graces. Pathetic. But you just stand there, watching, smiling, because this is your moment. And there's nothing sweeter than the sound of panic in the ones who swore you'd never figure it out. Silence. That's the part they never saw coming. They were prepared for your rage, for your retaliation, for you to lash out like a cornered animal. That would have made it easier for them. If you screamed, if you fought, if you gave them something to work with. But you didn't. You just watched. And that's what's killing them. Because they don't fear the scream. They fear the quiet, the nothingness, the eerie calm before the storm. That deafening silence where they're left alone with their thoughts. Thoughts that betray them. Thoughts that turn against them. Thoughts that whisper, "He knows." They wanted you angry. They wanted you emotional. They wanted you to break character and lose control so they could twist the narrative, play the victim, rewrite history in their favor. But what happens when you don't give them that satisfaction? When you leave them to choke on their own guilt, their own lies, their own damn consequences? They spiral. Oh, do they spiral? First, it's the nervous glances. Then the over-explaining. Then the frantic, pathetic attempts to patch up what's already shattered. You see the way they stutter, the way their confidence turns to doubt, the way their voices shake as they search for a way out. But there is no way out. Not this time. And the best part? You don't have to do anything. No threats, no revenge, just pure, unshakable control. Because nothing haunts a guilty soul more than the one person who refuses to react. The one person who just lets them drown. Let them squirm. Let them question. Let them lie awake at night, replaying every decision that led them here. And you move forward untouched, untamed, unbothered. Because the storm already passed, and they were the ones left out in the rain. Power? It's not in the outburst. It's not in the chaos. It's not in throwing punches just to feel something. No. True power? It's in the waiting. It's in watching them self-destruct, watching them dig their own graves with shaking hands and desperate words, all while you stand there, silent, still, unmoved. Let them run, let them sweat, let them wonder what comes next. That uncertainty, that's the real punishment. That's what eats at them, what twists their thoughts into paranoia, what makes their mind a prison they can't escape. Does he know everything? Is he planning something? When will he strike? They don't know, and that is exquisite. See, people like that, they rely on control, on predictability, on knowing your next move before you even make it. But when you break the pattern, when you throw their script into the fire and just watch, they collapse. Their own mind turns against them. Their fear becomes their prison. And you don't have to lift a single finger. Patience is the greatest weapon in psychological warfare. It's the art of doing nothing while they destroy themselves. No reaction, no retaliation. Just a quiet, knowing grin while they suffocate under the weight of their own mistakes. Because the longer you wait, the worse it gets for them. The paranoia grows. The regret sets in. The panic consumes them. Revenge? That's for the impatient, the weak, the ones who need instant gratification. But power, real power, belongs to those who can sit back and watch the fire spread, knowing they never even had to light the match. And by the time they realize it, by the time they're desperate for a way out, clawing at the walls, begging for a chance to make things right, it's too late. The game was over before they even knew they were playing. And look who's back. The same voices that once whispered behind your back, now trembling when they say your name. The same hands that pushed you down, now reaching, clawing, desperate to pull themselves back up. The same faces that once smirked at your downfall, now wearing forced smiles, fake kindness. Now you want to talk? Now you have something to say? Now you see my worth? Too bad. I'm deaf now, selective hearing. Call it a glitch, call it a malfunction. Either way, I don't process bullshit anymore. Watch how their pride cracks, how their voice shakes, how the confidence they once had drips away like sweat off their guilty skin. They're looking for a way back in, a second chance, a reset button. But life doesn't work like that. This isn't some game where they can restart just because they finally realize they played it wrong. See, the universe has a wicked sense of humor. It waits. It watches. It lets people think they got away with it until the day the bill comes due. And oh, when it does, it's brutal. Because karma doesn't knock. It breaks down the door, flips the table, and drags them to the same hell they tried to send you to. And the best part, you don't have to lift a damn finger. No revenge, no screaming, no proving a point, nothing. Just sit back, cross your arms, and enjoy the show. Because this is the sweetest justice of all. Watching them realize, too late, that they lost the one thing they never deserved in the first place. And you don't even need to say a word. Your silence is the sentence. Your absence is the punishment. Your success is the kill shot. Once you see the truth, there's no unseeing it, no rewinding, no pretending. You can't force yourself back into the illusion, can't shrink yourself down to fit inside the lie again. That world is gone, and if you're smart, you'll leave it in the rear view without a single glance back. They'll try though, oh, they'll try. Guilt-tripping, sweet-talking, fake apologies drenched in desperation. But you know better now. You see the strings behind their words, the hooks beneath their smiles, the trap hidden in their outstretched hands. And you're not falling for it this time. Some bridges don't deserve repair. Some wounds don't need healing. Some people are just dead weight, dragging you down, slowing your steps, poisoning your path. And the only solution, the only cure, fire. Watch it burn, watch the flames devour every last remnant of their hold on you. And when the ashes settle, step over them and keep walking. They'll call you heartless, cold, unforgiving. Good. Let them. Because these are the same ones who never thought twice about cutting you down, draining you dry, using you like a disposable pawn in their little game. And now that the tables have turned, now that you're the one walking away, they expect mercy. Mercy is for those who made mistakes, not choices. Forgiveness is for those who regret, not those who got caught. And second chances? Those belong to the ones who actually deserve them, not the ones who only want them because they're out of options. So keep walking, keep moving, keep rising, and if they beg, if they plead, if they come crawling back with tear-soaked words and trembling hands, look them in the eyes, smirk, and say nothing, because your silence, that's the final goodbye. They rolled the dice, thinking luck was on their side, thinking you were too blind, too naive, too forgiving. They played their hand with arrogance, smug smiles, and empty confidence, betting everything that you'd never see the truth. But they forgot one thing. The house always wins, and you are the house. The game is over. No more second chances, no more rewinds, no more fake apologies dripping in desperation. And now, you don't even need to lift a damn finger. Funny, isn't it? How the same ones who played you now find themselves trapped in a game they thought they controlled. But this time, the rules have changed. See, betrayal carries a price. A heavy one. And when it comes due, it doesn't knock, it kicks the door in, drags them out of their comfortable little delusion, and throws them into the same darkness they left you in. Only difference, you survived. They won't. Because there's no coming back from this. Not for them. Not anymore. They'll feel it in the silence, in the way their words hit empty air, in the way their presence no longer affects you, no longer shakes you, no longer holds the weight it once did. They don't exist in your world anymore. And that eats at them more than any revenge ever could. Karma has a wicked sense of humor. It lets them think they got away with it, lets them bask in their victory for just a little while longer. Then it flips the table, leaves them scrambling, gasping, searching for a way out. But there isn't one, not this time. They wrote this ending themselves. Now, they have to live with it. And you don't have to watch, you don't have to care. You don't even have to speak their name again. Because the best punishment isn't rage, it isn't revenge, it's erasure. And the moment you stop acknowledging them, the moment you walk away without a single backward glance, they cease to exist. Oh, this was inevitable. The grand finale, the moment where all the lies, all the masks, all the pathetic little games crumbled to dust. And the best part? You knew. You always knew. From the very beginning, you just let them think they were getting away with it. See, people love to believe they're clever, that their betrayals are hidden, their manipulations too smooth, their deception too deep. But you read them like a book with missing pages. You saw the cracks in their smiles, the hesitation in their voices, the greed behind their kindness. They weren't fooling you. They were fooling themselves. And now they know it too. That flicker of fear in their eyes, that desperate scramble for excuses, that sinking realization that they were never in control. It's delicious, isn't it? Watching them drown in the very trap they set for you, watching them grasp at straws, trying to rewrite a story that's already over. But the funniest part? You never even had to move. Didn't have to chase, didn't have to scream, didn't have to beg. You just stood there, silent, smiling, letting the truth do what truth always does, rip through the lies like a blade through silk. And now, there's nothing left but wreckage. Hey, look at them. Pathetic, suffering, struggling to grasp why the world suddenly turned against them, why their games no longer work, why the one they once mocked now walks away untouched. If only they had listened, if only they had realized that the quiet ones, the patient ones, the ones who smile instead of react, are the ones they should have feared the most. But it's too late now. The stage is empty, the curtain has fallen, and their time up. You don't need to watch anymore. Don't need to waste another thought on them, just walk away. And if they scream your name, if they beg for another round, if they plead for one last moment of your attention, just smirk, just chuckle, just let the silence say what words never could. You knew. You always knew. And now, they know too.